things that maybe finance academy kids get, like the interview and the job applications. And to be honest, even being in those classes, I didn't get the things such as the job application and stuff, which I found really helpful in my skills. But I don't know if you knew, like, you know, what exactly happened with the kids, but like, I did find that really helpful.
I was also a member of the Finance Academy. I was part of the first graduating class, and we did go over applications and interviews, but it was really well organized. But the life skills course, they did a really good job with, you know, other kids who weren't interested in business or such like that, you know, and that kind of topic. So it was just really well done and stuff, and it really helped me a lot to take, even though it seemed like I was doing it all over again. It was still really interesting. So
Thank you.
thank you again.
Kelly Harper.
Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to speak, and thanks for all that you do. As you work within this tight budget, consider once again a reduction in force. For example, with a decrease of about 39 students at the elementary level and a reduction of about 10 elementary teachers, it will certainly impact class size, and we are still trying to absorb the increase from last year's budget crisis. I wanted to inquire about some measurements you have taken to analyze the impact of change on this current academic school year. We have larger class sizes with respect to the new parameters set and reduced to one inclusive classroom per grade level. Are the needs of individual grade levels across the district at the elementary levels being considered? I'm concerned that we're painting the same brush, so to speak, when parameters are set and thus expected to be applicable at every grade level. Have you solicited feedback from various constituents, consultant teachers, classroom teachers, parents, for example, their perceptions about how things are going? I'm appreciative of the dedication, the energy, and the talent we continue to see in our schools, with more expected, with much less resources. I'm growing concerned, however, that we're moving in a direction where we risk losing what we have. If we cannot think out of the box to protect what we have, our teachers, who are the most valuable asset our children do have. If we have another reduction in force, I feel morale will sink to new depths and will naturally impact productivity. Please examine the impact of change brought on this current year as you consider difficult decisions, and please make our teachers a priority. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, Martha Kavanaugh.
Hi, my name is Martha Kavanaugh. I'm a U.S. history teacher at the middle school, and I attended a meeting last week at the high school regarding the upcoming budget. And I thought long and hard about an idea that I've had in my mind for quite a long time, and I'm certainly not alone in this idea. I believe that it would be a wise thought, it's worth consideration for the school district to approach the Hamburg Agricultural Society and talk to them about the millions of dollars which are generated each and every August at the America's Fair, now I think Erie County Fair. It's, I believe, a 501c3 organization. It's not part of Erie County, as we all know. I understand historically that this topic has gone to the New York State Supreme Court regarding the revenues that are generated at the fair. But I thought, in an effort of possible esprit de corps, that the district could approach the school, the Erie County Agricultural Society and talk to them about some kind of revenue sharing. I'll give you an example. At the University of Michigan, on a Saturday in the fall, they have I think the largest football stadium in the country. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that. And directly across the street from the football stadium is a high school, and I've parked there several times going to the University of Michigan games. And I was told by a teacher who was taking my money as I was going to park the car that the parking revenue generated at the high school from the University of Michigan goes to paying for approximately 40 teachers each and every school year. And it seems to me that we have a great resource sitting right over there on South Park Avenue that every year brings, I would say, at least 1 million people through the front gates. So each and every person that goes to the fair donated $1, just $1, to the Hamburg Central School District, that would generate a $1 million revenue source. Now, I understand that there are questions regarding this because of tax purposes, et cetera. However, I do know that there's dialogue going on in New York State with respect to revising and modifying casino gambling and the gambling laws. I would ask the Board of Education and the administration to get a seat at that table and realize the great resource that we have sitting right across the street. We could all walk there right now. And not only to mention that, but also the off-track betting and the racetrack that has been there and been there for years. It's an idea. These are desperate times. These are desperate measures. Perhaps it's old wine. I'd like to see it through a new bottle, and I would ask the board to address that matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe our last person is Sally Stevens.
Thank you for letting us speak this evening. I want to thank the speakers who spoke before me. I want to thank Holly. I want to thank Mr. Turchiarelli. I want to thank Martha. I want to thank Kelly Harper. They're expressing my sentiments exactly. And I have a lot of things to say this evening, but I'm going to cut it short. I agree with Ms. Kavanaugh. I've approached the board in the past many years ago. As you well know, you can't tax Erie County Agricultural Society, but they are very good neighbors. Some of you members that are sitting here in attendance are members of the Ag Society, as I am. They're very approachable and may donate a considerable amount of money to the school district. Seeing that we can't grow because we don't have a heavy industrial district in our community, we're basically a residential community. We need to look outside the box, as Ms. Kavanaugh said. The other thing also is that before you cut one teacher, I'm going to suggest, like Kenton, the superintendent there voluntarily took a pay cut. It wasn't asked, he volunteered it. He knew they were having difficult times with their budget, like every one of us. There are major layoffs in our community. People are hurting. What affects our children most are what's in the classroom. I commend the health teachers. I know they're overworked. It's dear to my heart because that's what I do at a community college. I run a clinic and I teach health. These kids need to know the facts of life and life skills. As I expressed to you, it is extremely important for these children. I stress again that you also, and I thank you, Barb, because you've done an excellent presentation at every meeting I've attended on the budget. It's been very thorough, very understandable for the average person to understand. I thank you, Holly, for the questions about class size. But I say to you once again, look at all the administrative salaries. As the governor of the state of New York has said, the superintendent's salaries in the state of New York is way out of line. This is a small district of 4,000 or less students, and the superintendents are making with fringe benefits well over $200,000. That's a huge salary. I'm going to add one other thing. There's a lot of things that are free to our community. As you well know, we engaged in a contract with energy education. I'm sure a lot of you members on the board never looked at that contract. If you looked at the contract, you'd say to yourself, we have NYSERDA, New York State Energy Research and Development Agency, which are free services to our communities. Erie Community College saves hundreds of thousands of dollars, make recommendations for capital improvements, how to save money. Now you're paying someone approximately $18,000 to go around and shut off lights. Person's very qualified, but what you're doing with that contract, all you're doing when you look at the contract for approximately $400,000 plus $18,000 a year to pay a teacher, all you're doing is renting a program, a computer program. It's not telling you to replace windows, caulk windows, doors. You're spending over $400,000 for the contract plus $18,000 a year plus education costs that you could have gotten possibly free from NYSERDA, if not free. These are things that should be investigated. Every time that you call an attorney for freedom of information, which is dear to my heart, because we should be informed, well-informed public, and I thank you, Barb, because we are well-informed on this budget. Calling Robert Freeman in Albany is free. They give you an answer right then and there, or they get right back with you. It's easy. The law is simple. The other thing is FOIA request. I've been to meetings. It's documented that they're here to make comments. You won't answer questions. You won't get information unless you present it. So how do we get information? How do I get information? I FOIA request you, which is the Freedom of Information Law. The law is very specific. I'm here, I expect the district not to erect barriers to access through FOIA. I expect them to answer it. But also my request recently, as you well know, nothing is secret anymore. Nothing can be secret. Everything is public. If you have a communication via email, I have the ability and the right to have access to that email. There are few things that you can discuss in private. And yes, I had to take you to the Supreme Court to make you open up the meetings, force you to obey the open meetings law. And I was successful. Now you see other communities are doing it. You see legislation out there that even your agenda has to be published. We have to know these things. There's no more secret agenda. Now I'm going to highly suggest that this board, and I've been through many budgets myself, go through a line-by-line item. When you start seeing excessive things for excessive benefits to administration, cut them. $200,000 is a lot of money to pay a superintendent. And as I say, if you're trying to look to cut teachers, set an example and start cutting your own salaries. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Meetings, workshops, reservations, things like that if people have had a chance to go through. Does anyone want to share some information in terms of things that boards attended?
I have a lot of attended actually. I would just like to touch on the 23rd, we did have a district health advisory, and I had highlighted from the meeting, actually both the presentations we heard tonight were my highlights, about the Hamburg Community Wellness Fair coming up and the Soul Giving Gardens and the new gardening project at Charlotte. Also, we had our Board of Education lunch at Charlotte. Bob, that was the first time you attended it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that went really well. The kids, as always, were great. We also had a Erie One BOCE sponsored breakfast for component districts of Hamburg, Frontier, Lackawanna, and West Seneca. One of our students spoke. He did a fantastic job, and he talked about the building trades. Also, we had the Hamburg High School musical. That was absolutely fantastic. The kids were just so amazing, so talented, the scenery, lights, everything. I just thought it was a really very nice musical. And then this past Saturday morning, several of us attended the legislative breakfast in Williamsville, and we heard a lot from our senators and assemblymen regarding the educational issues. And I do have a copy for the board members that didn't attend, if you would like to review the material that was discussed on mandate relief, fairness in funding, and sustaining the system. And it's been a busy couple of weeks.
No, and at that breakfast, it really does seem that everybody, all the districts are having the same problem. It's not just, New York City's getting money and they have more power, and us, we're just, not
Funding's
all,
not right.
funding's just not fair and equitable, and, it's across the board, and you have other districts that are in even worse trouble than we are. It appeared from the way they were speaking, do you agree, that are almost in worse trouble than we are.
Mhm.
So it just is across the board, I think.
Also with the Traffic Safety Committee, just so people are aware, on Saturdays or Sundays or whenever there's nice weather, you might see some Boy Scouts walking the village of Hamburg. Just be wary and cautious, because what they're doing is helping re-sign. They're going through the village street by street, by intersection, roundabout, and just verifying the signage to make sure that it is correct. They're doing a lot of measurements. So for safety issue, when you do see these boys out there, they should have their, scout uniforms on, but they're trying to, earn their next badge.
What about an update of some of the things happening at the school?
Okay, actually there's quite a bit of things going on in the high school. We're now in second semester or third quarter. Our winter sports are doing actually really well. Girls basketball, boys basketball, bowling, indoor track. Spring sports start March 5th, so tryouts will start then. Bye Bye Birdie, I also went to the musical, was phenomenal. It was like probably one of the best ones I've seen in a while. It was really good. More in a student government standpoint was where we talked about having a food drive with Frontier, and we finally got established with Food Bank. So at the end of March, we'll have a food drive competition with Food Bank and Frontier. So it'll be competition between us and Frontier, who can raise the most food for Food Bank. We're doing a Ball for Bucks assembly, and that's also in March. So we'll have an assembly 2 weeks before like the shaving for people to raise money for Ball for Bucks.
Keep looking at me, it's already bald, so it's not gonna be many for me.
And next week during the February break, we are painting the cafeteria. So we did talk about plans, and it was really hard to kind of whittle everyone's opinions down to make everyone happy. But but I think we did actually a really good job, and our plans are set, they're approved, and I think it's gonna look really nice. So, and then lastly, chorus is leaving for Carnegie Hall the 28th. It's the same Carnegie Hall in New York City. So, it's about it.
28th of February?
Yeah, and then we get back
February?
March 1st. Yep.
Dates coming up that have been referred to on Tuesday, February 28th, we have a budget work session. Tuesday, March 6th is another budget work session, and then on Tuesday, March 13th is the next board meeting. We do have scheduled for the energy conservation issue to be discussed at that.
Right.
So for those of you who are interested in that program, that would be a good time to be coming. That will be at the Hamburg Middle School.
Just briefly, let's not forget to mention the middle school musical as well.
Absolutely.
Music Man, they did a terrific job as well. I did attend the high school and the middle school, so I'd just like to acknowledge their musical and production as well.
Joe, I just want to touch, with Dr. Jeter on the technology committee, and some of the things that, you know, the hurdles we're facing, that Mr. Cummings brought about, we have to invest in technology to have a savings down the line, that it's great when the staff members that are on there are coming up with solutions that are phenomenal. I mean, as simple as, you know, when you're getting, consolidating the type of equipment we get to one type instead of getting 15 different kinds because we're bidding it so often. But the teachers on the committee, again, are phenomenal with stuff they're coming up with. There's gonna be some, so I feel some good ideas, some good cost savings down the road, so. That's I don't think we're ever short on staff members there. We're always pretty much a full group almost there every time we meet, so.
The group works well together. We will bring our technology plan for the board to read and approve, probably late spring, and we'll certainly have recommendations within that technology plan about at least a 3-year outlook on how to build some equity in the districts, and also move forward.
Good. Very good. Okay. Anything else before we move on to consensus items? Recommend a motion that approval be given to all the consensus items under section G. These do include the minutes from the board meeting, the budget session, and then tenure, some personnel retirement, those sorts of things.
Can I just, can we pull one out if we want? Do I do it? Okay.
Can we make a motion first and then they pull it out?
Yep.
Okay, let's have a motion first and a second. A motion and a second. A motion that approval be given to all the consensus items under section G.
Motion.
And a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay. Would you like to?
I'd like to pull out G2A3, the musical contract. You know, I have no problem with, but, you know, all this budget things and all this, was this already something that was agreed upon?
Yeah, why don't we should,
I'm
if there's no
sorry.
other, sorry, if there's other exclusions, let's look at.
Vote on all those,
Vote on
okay.
those, and then what we have to do is bring that up as a motion and then discuss it like that, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna, is there anything else that anybody wants to specifically be pulling out? Okay, can we then, go ahead with the first recommended motion excluding that one?
Right.
Okay, so we wanna vote on that recommended motion excluding the the musical contracts. We had a motion, we had a second, can we, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, so everything, except for the musical contracts. The musical contracts, do we want to go to,
Need a motion for that now?
do we want to be doing that today, or do we want to be postponing that for a future time, so there can be more research put into it? Do you have any feeling as to that?
I don't,
Just
I
need
think I
another
just have a
question,
question, really.
You just have a
Well,
question.
yeah, so I just wanna pull it
So I
out, and
have-
then we can vote, and then,
Yep.
A motion to discuss.
Well, motion to approve.
Motion to
Motion to
approve, I'm
approve.
sorry, the musical contracts, that's G2A3. Motion for that? Motion to,
well, I just had a question
Read it.
before
But
I.
we gotta go ahead and move the motion.
Motion to approve, that is open for
Motion
discussion.
Motion to
approve.
approve, open for discussion.
I second.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Now discussion.
Yeah, sorry, now
Now
we
we
discuss,
discuss.
thanks.
Okay.
I get confused with this too all the time.
Okay, my only question, okay, and with, we're gonna be getting into where we're worried about, at this point, when you have to cut 100,000 from athletics and 100,000 from music and 50,000 from art, you know, we're gonna have to worry about penny by penny by penny. So, we're, and, you know, every time we're voting and there's new stipends, and they add up to a lot of money. I mean, they really do, it's not, you know, and these add up to a lot of money. So are these, the musical contracts and you know, I know the coaching are contractual, I'm assuming. Are musical, are those also contractual, that something we already voted on as a board to, you know, in our budget, or that the HTA had voted on in their contract, so that, you know, we have to approve it, we have no choice, but, I mean, these are things we should be looking at for next year, you know, to.
These are items that are typically budgeted for.
Okay.
And they are, you know, we've gone through, and Greg, you can probably answer this a little bit better, but it is something that does occur with each musical. Now, Greg, if you want to give more detail, please?
Yeah, well, of course, to put on a musical the size of what they do here at the high school.
Oh, I know.
But the stipend itself and those positions that you're approving are in the extracurricular part of the HTA contract.
So they're already contractual, so this
Already
is nothing,
budgeted
I'm not
for.
saying, okay, spend more money and,
I
you
believe
know.
it's Appendix E, it's part of all the stipended positions of the HTA contract.
Oh, we also, think last year and before made some major cuts to those.
We
No,
did, we
I
had-
know,
Yeah,
I'm just,
I'm
I'm
just-
trying to ask, like, line by line, just so next, you know, I mean, we're talking budget up, and this is my
Well,
first year,
We
and,
represented last, maybe about, cut 2,500, that's considered now a good cut, a big cut, we cut $2,500 from some
I
positions,
know.
4,500, you know.
You know, it all adds up, I mean,
So
just
it
little
goes
things
down.
like modified cheerleading was gonna be cut, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, it does, it all adds up, so I'm just, you know, and these are all contractual items that we're voting on.
last year it was,
Mhm.
there were more positions to put on both the middle and the high school musical. We reduced that, but having directed those. it's-
Oh, no,
it's a
and the
lot of-
ones that Armor puts on,
And
I
my
see the ones
productions
that
were
Armor
nowhere
puts
near
on,
the
you think
folks
they
that
were
are
Broadway
doing it
show.
now, but, yes, and we will be looking at that again. I mean, also the musical does generate funds as well,
Oh, it does, okay.
so from the ticket sales, I'm not sure it pays for itself, but.
It's an advertising.
But it generates something, it helps
Yes.
recoup the cost. Oh, I'm not saying cut the musical, because I, you know, I'm just saying, these are more stipends. Okay, I'm done, thank you very much.
Any further discussion on the musical contracts? We did have a motion, a second on the motion, can we have a vote? All in favor of approving these?
Aye.
Second? Oh, we already did, second, all in favor? Aye, any opposed? No, okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the action items. Do we want to be mentioning the donations? We didn't stop for that, is that, do you want to at least address that while we? One of the things that we've changed in terms of the board is we do receive donations from the community, and we want to be making sure that we do acknowledge those donations at board meetings. So one of the things that we was included in this was acknowledgement of the fact that the Hamburg Alumni Foundation did indeed give spring grants for 2011 totaling $11,492.97. and fall grants totaling $11,148. And also gave high school career pathway grant through Erie Community College in the amount of $1,942. We really appreciate the efforts of the Alumni Foundation, which is now a combination of the Alumni Association and the previous Alumni Foundation. Is that not correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I'd also like to acknowledge the recommendation and approval of the board of Leslie Bennett's tenure. Leslie is over there. Leslie, congratulations.
Okay, moving on to action items. The first action item, recommend motion that approval is given to award the request for proposal for banking services to M&T Bank, effective as soon as can be reasonably implemented. A second for that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Your reason for that? What was that?
I'm an M&T employee.
Okay, that's good enough.
You are? I didn't know that.
Okay, our second action item is addressing the serial bond issue. The recommended motion that the official refunding bond resolution dated February 14th of 2012 is approved by the Hamburg Central District Board of Education for issuance and sale by the district of refunding bonds in an amount not to exceed $4,800,000. We need a roll call on that. First, let's have a motion.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Could I just have Barb explain this a little
Yes,
bit? Because
please.
as I said in my update, some of the conditions changed. So Barb, if you take us through the refunding piece in terms of the changes that have taken place since originally noted?
Sure. Part of the refunding process is, the numbers are run by an individual called a verification agent, who really looks at a lot of the taxable implication of a serial bond refunding. What was determined during that part of the process is a lot of the bonds during this time frame were not callable. The original bonds that were refunded the first time were not callable. You can still refund them, but they're placed in what's called an escrow account. Since those bonds were not refundable, the new bonds that we are trying to sell to refund the refunded bonds, they have a conflict with the taxable implication of the first selling. So basically, in the past 2 years, there's been a change in the way this procedure is done, and there's a very steep penalty imposed because of the difference in the interest rate of the old bonds sitting in escrow account as opposed to the rate of the new bonds. Well, to make a very complicated story short, it really eats up into your savings significantly, and it would eat up into our savings to the point where selling of non-taxable bonds is really no longer feasible. There's not enough present-day savings. So what Bond Council has suggested, along with our financial advisor, is we basically do proceed with the refunding, but we are instead going to issue taxable bonds, which municipalities and school districts certainly can do. It's not real common, but it does transpire. Taxable bonds are not going to yield as much of a savings for us. So unfortunately, we have lost a relatively significant anticipated savings. Our savings now will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000 a year. So it is a bit disappointing. However, it's still a savings. It's a net savings, and a savings is a savings, and we certainly don't feel it could look the other way, even though it's just not, because it's not as good as we had hoped. It's still a significant savings. So I did need to bring that to your attention so that you understand that the refunding is changed somewhat in the way it will be structured, and the savings is somewhat diminished. However, the process still will remain the same.
A roll call vote. Holly?
Aye.
Diane?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Patty?
Yes.
Myself, yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to the next. This is a participation resolution, BOCES of Western New York, RIC Technology Power Management and Endpoint Management Program. The recommendation is that approval is given to the resolution that the Hamburg Central School District participate in the BOCES of Western New York, what do I say, RIC Technology?
We call it.
Winnie Rick Technology Power Management Endpoint Management Program as presented by reduction in electricity use by computers to achieve substantial energy savings for the school district. A vote for the approval of the motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we then have a reimbursement of medical expenses. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of Hamburg Central School District reimburses some not to exceed $1,134.85 for medical expenses related to injuries sustained during school activities on April 26th of 2011. A motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We then have Erie One BOCES board nominations. A motion that the board nominates Judith H. Katz, residing at 186 Forest View, Williamsville, New York, which is located in the Williamsville Central School District, and Edward R. Caven, residing at 252 Willow Green Drive, Amherst, New York, which is located in the Sweet Home Central School District, as candidates for election to be held on April 17th, 2012, to serve as trustees for the Board of Cooperative Education Services, First Supervisory District of Erie County, in a term beginning July 1, 2012 through June 30th, 2015. A motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And they're nominated because there's only two names.
Right?
There's other two nominated, there's only two.
That's what I was gonna ask, how did you come up with them?
There's only
It's a
two
lot,
names.
it's a
And
lot
there's-
of work, and they do a good job
And
doing
there's
it.
two positions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we then have warrants. Recommend motion that the following warrants, the general fund, the federal fund, the school lunch fund, the trust and agency warrant, and the capital fund be approved. Do you want to be reading through each of them, or need to? Captain Hopper?
I think it's in front of you, you have those pieces, and I think Barb can offer an explanation if we get a resolution or a motion on the table.
So moved.
A motion, second?
Second.
Okay, are there, information people would like to know? Barb, do you want to make
Yeah,
a
why don't you
touch
have
base on that
Barb
a
lead
little
us
bit?
through just why this is on here and what we're doing.
Okay, usually you see the warrants under a consensus agenda because it's considered, just ordinary business that you see every month. We had some delays rendering warrants, in treasurer's reports, with the changeover of staffing and, there being, a lot of, Diane and I came into, we used to work with finance manager, so we came into a completely different accounting system with the absence of the previous district treasurer and certain other things. We found ourselves in a position where we had a lot of catch-up work to do and research to do in order to issue the warrants in a manner that we felt was accurate and that we were comfortable with. So we do apologize, there was a significant delay. From now on, you're going to see those warrants in the treasurer's reports on a monthly basis, and you'll probably see them again, I assume, under the consensus agenda. I know you had the warrants to look at over the weekend, and you do have now the corresponding treasurer's reports. The reports are in a format relatively similar to what you've seen in the past. We are working on updating the reports to be in a manner that we feel are maybe a little bit more user-friendly. The treasurer reports, I think, are especially hard to read. The numbers don't really all tie down, they're not supposed to, but if you haven't necessarily had particular training on it, they're a little cumbersome. What you'll find that is interesting probably to you folks on the treasurer's reports is that you can see our bank balances. What we are going to take the opportunity to do is when we transition from Citizens Bank to M&T, we're also going to restructure the way that both the warrant and the treasurer's reports look. We're going to have fewer bank accounts. We're going to do some consolidation. And you'll also start to see show up on the treasurer's reports. Something that you should always see, and you haven't, is the reserve funds. They should be accounted for separately and made available to you to see easily, which you cannot see at this point. They're accounted for in the capital fund and in the general fund, so that'll be broken out. So I think over the next couple of months, you'll see some changes, and you'll see it'll be a little bit easier to read and understand. So if you have any questions about warrants or reports when you get them prior to meetings, please feel free to call me. and I can certainly walk you through any questions that you might have.
This is certainly impressive work to have all of these months pulled together, and put before us. That's lovely.
Well,
I look forward to you guiding us through all the details of your coming reports, because they've been very clear and very helpful to us. We appreciate that.
Well, certainly, thank you.
Can we have a vote on that? All in favor? Opposed? And then our final recommended motion is that the treasurer's reports for July through December of 2011 be approved. A motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
You wanna-
Oh, excuse me?
Do you wanna give a little bit more detail on the treasurer's report now, Barb, or do you wanna, I mean, I know you went through in terms of some of the changes, but can you just provide some
Sure, but I
terms of
can
guidance
have it
in
on my
terms-
hand. Can I look at yours?
Sure, take it.
Thanks. The treasure report basically is a summarization of all of the funds that the district has. We have a general fund, a capital fund, federal aid, school lunch, expendable trust, trust and agency, and then it totals across. The funds really don't ever commingle, so the total of funds really is just there so you can see all of the funds that we either have or say keep. General funds are funds that are for the general operations of the district. So that is the budget that you are in the process of preparing. It's a general fund budget. It is the budget that the voters vote on. The capital fund is part of, right now where the debt service reserve is being kept, really should be shown separately. The capital fund is a fund where all capital project costs are accounted for. So we're going to see a lot of change within that fund as monies are borrowed, monies are expended. So that's where you can see a lot of movement regarding to our capital project. Federal aid fund accounts for all of our federal aid, which are many of our grants that we receive, and over the years, some of our education jobs fund money is housed in the federal aid fund. So again, that's not part of the general fund, it is a separate fund. School lunch is again a separate fund that we do not levy tax for. The goal of the school lunch fund is to be self-sustaining so that you can pay all of your expenses out of there related to school lunch, which would be not only the cost of the food, salaries, benefits, equipment, everything related to running and sustaining a school lunch fund. One of the things that Diane and I are going to be working on is trying to make our school lunch fund a little bit more profitable. It's running right now a little in the red. There's some things that we need to look at. It was a little misleading when you all looked at your financial statements, because the financial statements accounted for part of the fund balance as fixed assets, which is really equipment. You can't pay your employees and buy food with equipment, but it does have a value, so that is part of our fund balance. That's one of the things that we are now starting to look at. Expendable trust is where we receive keep monies that are in many ways an easy way to think of it is for scholarships and things associated that are not district-owned funds. Those are not our funds. The same thing holds true of trust and agency. It's where we flow all the money through, especially related to payroll, things in payroll like our 403Bs that our employees have the opportunity to participate in, those through trust and agency, other types of costs that are associated with employees that are not school district funds. Those through the trust and agency. So that's sort of a primer on the different funds. And like I said, you will start to see how the reserve funds show up on here in the future, which I think you'll find helpful. Not that we have very many, but it's one of the things that's the obligation of the school board is to understand what the reserve funds are. And so when we look to give direction or suggestions about how it should be expended, you can see how the money is flowing through the reserve funds. So all of the first section of the treasurer's report really just talks about the starting balance in July, the checking account balance, the saving account balance, that totals up. Any of the monies we bring in, that's under the cash receipts section. interest that is earned, you're gonna see there's very little interest earned these days. We used to make a nice little tiny sum of money off interest. As a matter of fact, once upon a time, you used to worry about making too much money on the interest of your capital project, and if you make too much, then you have to give it back. That doesn't happen anymore. There's really very little interest. Interfund transfers occur when money is brought into one fund and then really is owed to another for many different reasons. You'll see interfund transfers probably in every treasurer's report. I would start to think you're gonna see those reduce at this point. A lot of the money that was brought in at the beginning, you can see in July, was from our borrowing, and that needed to be reallocated to the correct funds. The next section, the middle section, are the disbursements, and those are the warrants, which is really, all a warrant is a fancy way of saying our bills for the month that you approve. So of course, then we take off all the money we owe, payments to ERS, payments on debt service, again, any interfund transfers to pay out of certain funds, or money may be owed to another fund, is indicated in the section in the center of the treasurer's report. So we total up all of our disbursements, and then we get a balance between the two, basically the difference, just like when you have your own checking account. The bottom section is the bank reconciliation, where you can see monthly the different bank accounts, checking accounts, and savings accounts by funds, outstanding checks, and then on the very bottom, the bank balance for every fund in the district. Within each fund, there are very well many bank accounts per fund, something like 11 in the general fund. We're not gonna be doing that anymore. Used to be years ago, you had to have a separate account for everything. Now with the advent of the computer, Excel spreadsheets, things like that, you don't have to have one bank account anymore. You just, you account for those separately. Keeping your money in one bank account maximizes interest and limits bank fees. So that's kind of where we're going.
We made the motion, second, let's vote on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can I have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much for those of you who hung in there with us. Have a good rest of your Valentine's Day.
I'm glad Betsy's gonna get a heart for Valentine's Day. Left them all around the table.
Did your battery turn down?
Does everybody have one?
It was bound to happen.
Everybody have a Betsy on there?
Here, you can write all this.
Actually,